Greetings, campers! Welcome to the world according to Yoni. If you've been watching or listening to the show for a while, you know that I've been missing in action. Sorry about that. It couldn't be helped. And if you're new to the show, thank you for joining us. Sometimes I have guests. Sometimes it's just me, especially if I feel like I have a lot to say. And boy, this week do I feel like I have a lot to say. However, before I do that, I'm going to do something that I usually do at the end of the show, but people can skip it. So I thought I'd try it this way. If you like the show, if you enjoy yourself here, please subscribe to the show, either on your favorite podcast network or on my YouTube channel. Excuse me. All you have to do is put the world according to Yoni in the tab on YouTube, and you will find me. Also, we have an Instagram page now. We have a page on Facebook and Twitter, all the world according to Yoni. So please join us there, like us, all the usual stuff. I don't know. I'm not good at this. That's why I have somebody helping me out with it. Anyway, it is time for me to go on a rant. And hopefully I can add some humor to the joy we have been living through. I don't even know where to begin, really. I mean, so much has happened. Even since I wrote the script for today, things have changed. So, I'll have to fly with that. But I wanted to start with this. In a recent poll, well, it's a series of polls taken around the world, the U.S. was ranked 24th, and there was one poll where it was ranked 25th among democracies. They called the United States a flawed democracy. So much for the arrogance of people telling us we are living in the freest and greatest nation on earth. No, we're not. We're not even close to the top. Wonder why that is? Look around you. Look at, I hate to point fingers, but look to the Rethugla QAnons in Congress and in the Senate. What are they doing for the people? Nothing. They don't believe in the people. They don't give a flying fuck about the people. No, they just don't. It's good to remember that, like after the tragedy of September 11th, 2001, Americans, including the majority of those in Congress, both Democratic and Republican, I hold everybody responsible for this. They were all frightened enough by what happened that day, or at least frightened their constituents would see them as weak on defense or unpatriotic enough, whatever the hell that means, that they blindly threw the Constitution under the bus, allowing the government unfettered access to the private and personal information of the citizens of this country. It was a tragic mistake then, and a bold step toward totalitarianism. And, the CIA, the NSA, all the spy organizations that now have access to information they're not entitled to, according to the Constitution. But, hey, who cares about the Constitution? Citizens United, woo, that was a big help, wasn't it? The fact that these unconstitutional laws are still in effect makes this country one of the most hypocritical on the face of the earth. I mean, on the one hand, we talk about a free society. On the other, government agencies holding enormous power over the majority of this nation's citizens due to the information they have access to, which they never should have been granted. Enough is enough. I mean, I'm sorry, but we have a Constitution. If you want to amend the Constitution, great. But I think some of the basic things, freedom of speech, freedom of thought, freedom of religion, all these things were the basis of the Constitution of this country. And all of it's being ignored. And why is it being ignored? Let's narrow it down to a single word that says it all. Money. This country, and most countries around the world, but this country in particular, are controlled by money. Most particularly, 600 billionaires who have bought enough politicians that they don't have to worry about paying taxes or doing the things all of us normal, everyday, mundane citizens struggling to survive have to do. It's insane. And it's got to change, because if it doesn't, this country's in serious, serious trouble. All of which brings me, somehow, to Attorney General Merrick Garland and those defending his inaction. Now, I've got a lot of friends who keep saying, you got to give Merrick Garland a chance because he hasn't been in there all that long, and, you know, he's working behind the scenes to make sure that the insurrectionists, who I like to call terrorists, because that's what I think they are, who invaded the Capitol on January 6th, are brought to justice. And yes, that includes Twitler, his family, and every member of Congress who participated, who created this event that could have ended in the destruction of our democracy. And that's not being hyperbolic. That's simply the truth. Okay, so Garland. Friends of mine, you know, progressives, are saying, take it easy. But take a look at what Mr. Garland has been able to accomplish in the time he's been in office. And I thank Sarah Kendzior for doing the research that I haven't had the time, energy, or ability to do myself. Here is what Merrick Garland has accomplished. 1. Garland's DOJ defended Donnie Dumpster in a personal lawsuit against E. Jean Carroll, a woman he raped. Yeah, there was time for that. 2. He also defended Trump and former Attorney General Bill Barr when they ordered the beating and gassing of protesters in Lafayette Square. 3. How about the fact that he covered up or helped cover up Barr's obstruction of the Mueller probe? Yeah, the refusal to release the full OLC, that's the DOJ memo they used to justify the excuse a sitting president cannot be indicted, even though the guys who wrote the memo in the first place said the DOJ was misinterpreting their statement and intent, and that Barr used this memo as a pretext for his lies. And Garland has done nothing about it except cover it up. 4. Garland has also defended the DOJ's spying on the Washington Post. Huh? What? I mean, I don't get it. And if you can explain it to me, please do, because It's beyond me. I'm sorry. I'm not that smart. I don't get it. Okay, on. 5. Additionally, Garland has been so busy defending members of Donnie Dumpster's cabal. Let's add Dan McGahn to the list since the current Department of Defense or Department of Justice. What am I saying? Department of Defense, Department of Justice. They're getting to be the same. The DOJ is defending Dan McGahn against congressional subpoenas. What's he going to do now, Ray, the January 6th commission's subpoenas? Is that why Steve Bannon isn't behind bars? Why isn't Steve Bannon behind bars? What do you have to do to the Democrats to get them off their fucking asses and fight? And look, we have some great people, leaders. We have Val Demings, Jamie Raskin, AOC. We've got some really wonderful people. But we also have a bunch of middle-of-the-road Democrats and wishy-washy leaders, and I use the term loosely, who are doing nothing. They're not forcing the issue. Otherwise, Steve Bannon would have been in jail 2 weeks ago, and he's not. But back to Merrick Garland, because this is good. So far, this goes with what I was just saying, so far at least, he has refused to prosecute any of the high-level January 6th operatives. That's the people in the White House, that's the people in Congress. That's you, Kevin McCarthy. Anyone. And you can tell me that they're doing their investigation under wraps. Well, we don't even know that they're doing an investigation. We have seen and heard nothing to demonstrate that the DOJ is investigating these people. Why? I'm sorry, it's the truth. We have to deal with and face the truth. This is a good one. How about his appealing a ruling that the Democrats won, seeking to expose the corruption of the Trump administration at the Trump Hotel in D.C., or his refusal to follow up a House investigation of Bill Barr and Wilbur Ross. He stopped that. Finally, Garland wants to implement a 50-year delay on when courts can consider releasing materials from grand juries. This would mean we will not get to see the Trump administration court documents until 2069. I don't know about you, but I know damn well I'm not going to be here in 2069. So this is what Merrick Garland has accomplished so far. The man is a Democrat. The man could be, and actually should be, sitting on the Supreme Court. But I do not believe he is the right person to run the Department of Justice. I think he has about as much strength running the DOJ as Chuck Schumer has as Senate Majority Leader. And that means none. It's beyond me. I mean, I don't know how many times I have to say this, but I do. I get confused because I thought we lived in a country where everybody lived by the same laws. But the truth is we don't. If you're rich, if you're white, there are a different set of laws for you. If you're poor, if you're a person of color, forget about it. I was going to do the forget about it, but, I thought I'd leave that one alone. I am beside myself. I really am. I'm beside myself. I've been sick for a good period of time and trying to recover. It hasn't been easy, and I've had a lot of time to sit and read and watch the news as much as I can and listen to the Stephanie Miller Show, which, for my money, is one of the best sources of news and information out there, along with, of course, Rachel Maddow and Lawrence O'Donnell, although some of the MSNBC people, like you, Chuck Todd, you pathetic excuse for a journalist, how they're on the same network, I do not understand. But I digress. I just don't get it. We are so close to losing our democracy. And what frightens the living hell out of me is that there's at least a third of the people in this country willing to let that happen. It is beyond my comprehension. That's what you get for learning and reading. Going on. There was a report from Rolling Stone a week or two ago that confirmed that the fight to hold the insurrectionists accountable must extend to Donald Trump and to his co-conspirators in the United States Congress. According to sources, multiple members of Congress were involved in planning meetings for overturning the election results. Stop the Steal rallies and the violent assault on the U.S. Capitol. This is where the big lie comes in. What the fuck are we doing? I mean, we know this man is a criminal. Are we really going to let him get away with, the crimes Donald Trump and his family and his buddies committed while he was in office? They're profiting off his being in office. They're conspiring with Russia. Their complete lack of concern for COVID is, even while they all got treated quickly, while they told everybody else, oh, don't take that vaccine. This is insane, folks. This is just nuts. We know. The FBI knows. Media outlets know. And when media outlets talk about it, especially since they are corporate owned and corporate run and corporate controlled, when even they tell you, yeah, well, we know what really happened. And we sit here waiting for justice. I've heard the wheels of justice turn slowly, but this is insane. So that's that. Now, anonymous witnesses have detailed support from Representatives Marjorie Taylor Greene of Georgia, big surprise, Lauren Boebert of Colorado, another huge surprise, Mo Brooks of Alabama, Paul Gosar and Andy Biggs of Arizona, Madison Cawthorn of North Carolina, and your favorite and mine, Louie Gohmert of Texas, one of the dumbest people to ever sit in the United States Congress, although with Boebert and Taylor Greene, boy, is there competition for that title. Mr. Gosar even suggested a possible blanket pardon from Trump of the insurrectionists before he left office. And the insurrectionists thought that was what was going to happen because Trump basically told them he'll take care of them. Yeah. Trump doesn't take care of anyone other than Trump. And if survival meant selling his own kids down, I'm losing the, if it meant selling his own kids out, he'd do it in a heartbeat. You know he would. Because he has survival instincts. The first three things on Donald Trump's mind are Donald Trump, and Donald Trump. Probably fourth and fifth are also Donald Trump, but what the hell. Anyway, with witnesses willing to testify regarding aid from federal lawmakers in planning the insurrection, the January 6th Commission and Congress as a whole must take action to hold these representatives accountable for their treasonous actions. Expelling every member of Congress, I mean every single one of those bastards who helped coordinate this terrorist attack on our democracy, is not enough. These scumbags belong behind bars. How? I honestly, how can anyone at this point not get that? These people are destroying our democracy. And please, I've said this on the show before, but if you haven't read Sinclair Lewis's 1933 book, It Can't Happen Here, which he based on what was happening in Germany at the time with Hitler rising to power and how he got there. We are mirroring them. And if that doesn't scare the living hell out of all of you, well, something's wrong somewhere. Anyway, since I mentioned good old Marjorie Taylor Greene, did everyone see her tweet where, there have been lots and lots of attempts by Republicans from Donnie Dumbtruck on down to rewrite the history of what happened in the Capitol on January 6th. There was Georgia Representative Andrew Clyde who called the insurrection, quote, a normal tourist visit. Seriously? Seriously? And Wisconsin's contribution to assholiness, Senator Ron Johnson, oh my God, that guy is pathetic, who insisted the events of January 6th weren't an armed insurrection. Really? What was it then? Come on, Ron, tell us. What was it if it wasn't an armed insurrection? Because I've seen the video. I've seen the pictures. It was absolutely an insurrection at best. It was a terrorist action, really. What do we do with terrorists in this country? Well, if they're foreign or if they're, of different colors than us, well, And let us not forget that flaming jackass, House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy, who has continuously attempted to cast the tangerine turd as blameless when we can all see him on video goading his maggot moron brigade on to violence. I mean, this is something that we saw again and again when Trump was running for president and while he, God help us all, was president. Don't believe what you see. Don't believe what you hear. Believe what I tell you. Well, naturally, because we all know that Donald Trump is one of the greatest truth tellers in American history, right? But then we go back to Georgia's own addition to those who should be behind bars, not seated in the House of Representatives, Marjorie Taylor Greene, that woman, for comedy, is the gift that keeps on giving. But for this country, she's a one-person debacle. Marjorie Taylor Greene, in an appearance on Steve Bannon's podcast a week or two back, yeah, Steve Bannon still has a podcast because he's not behind bars. I'd like to see him do it from there. Anyway, in her appearance on Bannon's podcast, Greene said, and by the way, I have to say it again. Why isn't that motherfucking terrorist behind bars, Mr. Garland? Greene actually said, and later posted on her Twitter feed, quote, January 6th was just a riot at the Capitol, and if you think about what our Declaration of Independence says, it says to overthrow tyrants, end quote. Well, it sounds like a confession to me. But here's the thing. Overthrow tyrants? How can you overthrow a tyrant or know he's a tyrant on the day of his, or 3 weeks, I'm sorry, what am I saying? Weeks before his inauguration. You want a tyrant? Trump was a tyrant. But give me a break. I mean, come on. If you can look at the video, if you can look at the deaths or the injuries sustained by the Capitol Police, some of which was perpetrated by other police from around the country who participated. How can you not accept that for what it is? You know, when Nixon resigned many, many years ago, it was because ranking members of the Republican Party went to the White House and said, Mr. President, it's time to resign. There was no marching in goose step like they do for McConnell. Is there one person, especially Senate-wise, in the Republican Party who has the honesty or decency to do the right thing? Because if there is, I haven't seen it. I really haven't seen it. And please, don't tell me about Mitt Romney, because Mittens is another rich white billionaire who will do whatever he has to not to pay not only his fair share of taxes, any taxes whatsoever. None. Naturally, this begs the question, why has not one member of the Twitler administration or his conspirators in Congress been indicted or imprisoned for the acts of terrorism that they helped incite on January 6th? Nevertheless, I keep being told to give Merrick Garland a chance. Really? I mean, think about it. Garland is a middle-of-the-road Democrat who thus far has shown much more sympathy toward the criminals who have tried to destroy what's left of our democracy, as opposed to the American people whom supposedly he serves. This is why I keep saying, why can't Glenn Kirshner be Attorney General? He wouldn't sit for this. The middle of, you have to remember. No, you know what? Let me continue, and I will get to my point here. I keep being told that I shouldn't be attacking other Democrats. My response is fuck that. When Democrats act like Rethugla QAnons, ignoring the rule of law when it comes to the rich and powerful. I will attack them for betraying us, we, the people. Democrats don't march in goose step like the Rethugla QAnons. We have a wide range of different opinions because we are a big party. And we have a lot of different opinions. You know, there's an old joke. How do you get an argument? Well, put 3 Jews in a room. And I can say that because I'm Jewish and I know the truth of it. Well, it's kind of the same thing. You can have a room full of Democrats and you'll have 20 opinions, different opinions on the same thing. So, you know, if you really want to see fireworks, let's see some action. Democrats, we are an inclusive party. There are Democrats, like I think I would put Merrick Garland in this category. They're Democrats who would have been Republicans 20 years ago. And after Trump, Republicans who, while they may have defected to the Democratic Party, are still trying to move this country to the right. How? By pulling the Democratic Party to the right. That's been happening since at least Bill Clinton was in office. So, you know, we have that group, and then we swing pretty far to the left, too. So to expect no infighting among us is ridiculous. You can't have a party covering that many people with that many differing views and not expect intense disagreements. And for me, Merrick Garland, again, is the perfect demonstration of that. I already mentioned Glenn Kirshner, but I'll mention him again, because if he was appointed Attorney General, do you think we'd still be having to make excuses for those involved in organizing the terrorist insurrection of January 6th? Would they still be walking around free as birds? And why the terrorists responsible for the deaths of 4 Capitol Police officers, injuries to hundreds of others, and the attempted murder of Mike Pence, one of their own, because all you have to do is deviate slightly, just slightly, from what Donny Boy wanted, and you were a traitor. So it didn't matter how far to the right you've been in your whole career. They wanted to kill Pence too. They wanted to kill Nancy Pelosi and other Democratic congressional leaders. And what's happening? They're receiving slaps on the hand. These people are terrorists who invaded our capital, the people's house, with the intent to do bodily injury. They were goaded on by a president who is an arrogant, egomaniacal, psychotic whack job, and by his minions like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert and Kevin McCarthy, Ron Johnson. I could go on. Okay, for those wondering what that cut was, I was in the middle of a sentence and the phone rang. I usually unplug phones before I do the show. I forgot. Anyway, okay, so I was talking about all these wonderful people on the right. This has got to stop. Really, something has to change because there's a fundamental sickness going on in this country. I know that a lot of it has been going on for the entire history of the country It's just, been covered over, or it happened at a period of time where we didn't have the communications that we have now. So you didn't know about it. You didn't hear about it. I mean, for years, who in the North heard about the lynchings down south? Or if you did hear about it, it was like some history lesson. It happened, back before the Civil War. Bullshit! It's never stopped. It has never stopped. We've maybe gone from the severity of lynchings to, police actions where no person of color can walk the streets, especially if you're wearing a hoodie, God forbid. You're taking your life in your hands. People of color understand this. That's why they vote Democratic most of the time, or the majority of them do. Herschel Walker, special case. I just threw that in for the people of Georgia. Anyway, that brings me to Wisconsin Judge Bruce Schroeder, who determined that poor little Kyle Rittenhouse, the psychopath who crossed state lines where he shot 3 people, killing 2, severely injuring the 3rd in Kenosha, Wisconsin, is being treated too harshly. So what did Schroeder do to prove A, he's unfit to sit on any bench in this country, and B, demonstrate just how unevenly the law is applied in this country? He told the prosecution they cannot refer to the people Rittenhouse shot as victims. Well, Judge Schroeder, I have a question for you, which you will never answer. 2 people who were shot dead and another who was in the hospital because of the severity of his injuries. If these people aren't victims, who is? I mean, the word no longer has any meaning. They are victims. Why can't they be referred to as what they were? Hell, if I grabbed your pocketbook on the street and ran, you're the victim. So how can 2 people who were murdered in cold blood by this little psychopath not be called victims in the courtroom? And if you can answer that question, you're better than me, because God knows I don't get it. Okay, so now I'm going to kind of transition a little bit. I feel absolutely terrible for poor little Elon Musk. Do you realize that Elon Musk earns $38 billion a day? That's billions with a B. And needless to say, he is a multi-billionaire. But poor little Elon doesn't want to pay taxes. In point of fact, in 2018, he paid 0 in taxes. A guy who makes $38 billion a day. How do I say this? Oh, okay. I say, fuck you. You fucking fuck. You sniveling little shit. I mean, you and your buddies like Mark Zuckerberg and Jeff Bezos can fold your billions 3 ways and shove them where the sun don't shine. Because you guys are beyond entitled. I don't know how to describe what you are. But you know what you're not? You're not patriotic Americans, that's for sure. Zuckerberg, who knowingly and willingly, because it meant money in his pocket, let the Russians invade Facebook. And by the way, a change of name, a little stupid change of name, is not going to change who you are or what you do. We're not stupid. Well, I suppose the Thugla QAnons may be, but we are not. Give me a break. Just give me a break. I guess I need to talk about the Virginia election last week, wherein a pseudo-religious fanatic who really, I think he would like to be dictator of Virginia. This is a person, Glenn Youngkin. I watched his commercials because, we live near Virginia, so they aired here. I watched his commercials and I thought, no sane person could vote for this guy. But the Democrats' nominee was Terry McAuliffe, former Governor Terry McAuliffe, as a matter of fact. But more to the point, Terry McAuliffe is another entitled rich white guy. He ran a shitful campaign because of his entitlement. He thought, I've got this. Virginia's turned blue, so, I can go after Trump, go after Trump, go after Trump. Should have gone after Youngkin, you putz. I mean, come on. Youngkin and the Republicans now own Virginia. That's bad enough. And Democratic Party, you've got to get it through your fucking heads. The party is changing. Joe Biden is in office because the progressives came out in droves and voted for him. And I have to wonder how many progressives in Virginia stayed home. They shouldn't have. They should have gone and voted. But it's almost understandable why they wouldn't have for McAuliffe. Because while he's not a fascist and he's not a totalitarian, he's no great bag of joy either. So I'm really, really disappointed. But just remember, Virginia, you now have a governor who thinks that Toni Morrison should be banned from school libraries, if not public libraries as well. Toni Morrison, one of the great writers of the 20th century. And of course, does anyone think he will not try to do in Virginia what Greg Abbott and his cabal did for abortion rights in Texas? I mean, come on. What the fuck are you people thinking? But let's take that even further. God, I'm really emotional about this kind of stuff, because I saw so much of it when I was sick, and it made me sicker. But I felt it was my obligation to watch this crap. Where am I going with this? There's going to be an edit in here somewhere because I'm losing my mind. I was saying, Democratic Party really, really needs to change their ways. One of the main reasons Democratic candidates win is because of black voters, especially women of color? How can you continue to make promise after promise after promise, year after year, to them and deliver nothing? How long do you think they'll keep voting for Democrats? At some point, something's got to give. And it better be the Democratic Party realizing we can't just say, we will do this, this, and this. You have to do it. You have to do it. Which I guess brings me to the two most non-democratic Democrats in the Senate, Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema. I have signed, I don't know how many petitions over the past 2-3 weeks to primary them both, to, call the wrath of God down on both of them because they are traitors to their party, but more importantly, they're traitors to their own constituents. They are blackmailing the Democratic Party because without them, we can't pass anything in the Senate. Well, Joe Manchin gets his money from the coal industry. Oh, well, good. So he's going to look out for everyone, including his constituents. No, he's looking out for a small part of his constituency. But more importantly, he's looking at the money that keeps coming into his pocket so he can live in that expensive houseboat on the water in D.C. And Kyrsten Sinema, I am glad that some of my female friends have used a word to describe her that I will not use because I don't like the word, but I agree with it. It's the C word in case anybody's not getting it. It's incomprehensible to me because, well, put it this way. When she was elected, we thought, oh my God, great. An out bisexual woman in the Senate representing Arizona. How great is that? A progressive. We thought she was a progressive. Yeah, she's about as progressive as Tulsi Gabbard, another great winner who was a thugla QAnon in Democratic clothing. I've read a lot about Kyrsten Sinema in the past week or two from people in Arizona who have known her through the years. And what I now understand is Kyrsten Sinema has something in common with Donald Trump. The three things that she cares about most are Kyrsten Sinema, and Kyrsten Sinema. She has bold aspirations. She is ambitious, which is great, but her ambitions make her think that it's better to side with the Rethugla QAnons than it is with members of her own party. She's not a Democrat. Manchin's not a Democrat. They may have D's after their name on the ballot, but they're not. That's why Mitch McConnell still acts like he's the Senate Majority Leader, because as long as he's got Manchin and Sinema kissing his ass and more than willing to betray their constituents, President Biden, and the entire Democratic Senate, we're not in the majority. Even with Vice President Harris, we're not in the majority. And Mitch McConnell is still the Senate Majority Leader. And Chuck Schumer, I'm sorry, I remember when he was a fighting liberal. Well, now, as far as I'm concerned, he's a gutless wimp. He is not doing the job of a Senate Majority Leader. I mean, come on. Take a lesson from the Democrats, from the Rethugla QAnons, I'm sorry. I'm not saying be evil, be criminal, because that's what they are. But you have to be strong. You have to be firm. And you have to get your message across. I guess that brings us to the American media. The corporate-controlled American media. Tell me, does anybody out there remember antitrust laws? And like the breaking up of Ma Bell years and years ago? Because when you keep gobbling up companies and become a monopoly, you take away the competition. Oh yeah. Survival of the fittest. No, survival of the richest. And that's given us a country where Fox News is actually considered news, where companies like Newsmax can lie to the people who listen to them, who follow their marching orders, but do the opposite for themselves. And specifically, I'm talking about vaccinations. Newsmax doesn't believe in vaccinations, except, of course, for their own employees, who have all been mandated to be vaccinated. Same at Fox. So, come on, somebody give me a break, because it's insane. And the corporate media, not just the ones you expect, but even like MSNBC. Okay, we've got some great people there. We got Joy Reid, we got Lawrence O'Donnell, we got Chris Hayes, and we got Rachel Maddow. And during the day, we've got a couple good people too. But we also have Joe Scarborough, who is one of the biggest assholes I have ever seen. He's a putz. And you know what? As much criticism as he may have done regarding Trump in the last year or so, let's remember that Scarborough gave Trump free rein to bash Hillary as much as he wanted when he was running against her. So, I don't think much of Mr. Scarborough, and I think I've made it more than clear what I think of Chuck Todd. How this man still has a job is beyond me. You have individuals at CNN who are really good, and then you have individuals at CNN who are really bad. But if you take the corporate media as a whole, and I'm talking newspapers, Maureen Dowd, so the New York Times, the Washington Post, yeah, once in a while they'll do a really good investigative piece. But on the whole, all they care about is ad revenues. And ad revenues come from interesting and fun stuff that people listen to and read. And who's better copy? Somebody who's kind of dry like President Biden, or a flamboyant maniac like Donald Trump, or Donnie Jr., or Eric, or, well, Ivanka's in hiding at the moment, but you get the idea. I don't know. This is the stuff I have stored up from not having done a show in a month or more, because, it's just piling up, and I am bursting at the seams with all of it. I want to go back to one of my favorite Rethugla QAnons and dumbest members of Congress, Louie Gohmert. Moron and embarrassment to the human race. He wants to know why those who participated in the late Representative John Lewis's peaceful sit-in of the Capitol on June 22nd, 2016, weren't treated the same way as the terrorists who invaded the Capitol on January 6th. Gohmert, aside from being a moron and a lying scumbag, should have asked then Speaker of the House, Paul Ryan, a member of his own party, why he didn't censure Representative Lewis. Why? Because what Lewis did was very American. It was very patriotic. They weren't threatening anyone. They weren't there to harm anyone. They were there to simply and peacefully make a point. That's the difference. And it's a huge difference. But Gohmert wouldn't have asked. He won't do that, because if he did, then everyone would realize just how fucking stupid he is and how full of shit he is. But, you know, that's not how America goes these days. Have you noticed? And speaking of QAnon assholes, let's not forget Texas's Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick. Who is Dan Patrick, other than being Lieutenant Governor of Texas, which in and of itself should tell you more than you need to know? Well, Danny Boy offered up $1 million to anyone who provided information that led to an arrest and final conviction of anyone in this country for voter fraud. Of course, the key word here is up to $1 million. Why? Because naturally, that gave Patrick the out he needed from handing over $1 million. Yeah, I'm offering up to $1 million, although if I have to pay anybody out, it's going to be a shitload less than that. Especially since the proven voter fraud came via a Pennsylvania poll worker named Eric Frank, whose father is an election judge and whose mother works for the Pennsylvania Democrats as a campaign manager. Frank's father was the person Frank notified when he saw that 72-year-old Ralph Thurman, a registered Republican, asked if he could cast a vote for his son, who happened to be a registered Democrat. He was told doing so was illegal, and no, you can't do that. Nonetheless, he returned wearing sunglasses and tried to pass himself off as his son. Frank immediately shared this information with his father. Thurman eventually pleaded guilty to repeat voting for Trump. Okay? That's the proven, voter fraud. He was sentenced to 3 years probation and will be unable to vote for 4 years. Personally, I think he got off easy. But, okay. Voter fraud. The only prosecuted case of voter fraud was by Orithugla QAnon. And I know that shocks my listeners and viewers. How is that possible? But aside from my wondering what prison Thurman would now be rotting away in had he been a Democrat, Patrick had to cough up something to Mr. Frank, so he coughed up $25,000, which is a far cry from $1 million. But then we all know what Patrick was hoping for. He was hoping for proof of Democratic voter fraud, which he has seen no proof of, because you know what? It doesn't exist. Go figure. Now, if you've been watching or listening to the show for a while, you know that I used to do a dickhead or asshole of the week. I stopped because there were just so many people to choose from. It was almost impossible. But I do want to give a special shout out to Donnie Trump Jr., who is selling $28 t-shirts on his website, which read, quote, "Guns don't kill people. Alec Baldwin does." I don't know who wrote that slogan for him, since Donnie doesn't have the brain power to come up with it. But it took no time for that little chip off the old prick to take a tragedy, the death of a director of photography on a film set because Alec Baldwin shot off a prop gun he was told was unloaded. Alec Baldwin has to live with that for the rest of his life. Do you think that's going to be easy for him? But no. Donnie Jr. doesn't like Alec. Why? Because, of course, Alec did such a dead-on, wonderful impersonation of his father on Saturday Night Live. He made mincemeat of Donnie Sr., which was more than deserved. So Donnie figured, I can take this tragedy, and not only can I make money off of it from the other morons who will do anything any member of the Trump family asks them to, but I can get back at Baldwin. Forget that one person is dead, one person was wounded, and another person is going to live with this tragedy that he was a part of for the rest of his life. So there was that. But as unbelievably stupid and callous as Twitler Jr. is, he'd have to be even dumber than Eric not to understand Alec Baldwin did not murder cinematographer Helena Hutchins. I mean, it's just so stupid. And if Twitler Jr. thinks his little money-making venture helps M. Hutchins' husband, son, and family get through this tragedy, he's even dumber and more callous than I give him credit for. I don't know. I just don't know. But between Donnie Jr. and Elon Musk whining about having to pay taxes, and you have to wonder, with 600 billionaires trying to avoid paying taxes, just how many people, how many senators, how many congressmen have they bought off? It's a fair question. It's a legit question. It's an honest question. How many have they bought off? Because if I made $38 billion a day, throwing a couple of billion to bribing senators and congressmen would be easy. Time that one by 600 and see what you come up with. That, my friends, is the country we live in. I don't know what else to say, because, you know, I've been dealing with this stuff and thinking about it for a while now. And something's got to give. Something has got to change. Guys, we are headed down a path toward fascism and totalitarianism. We are one election away. And the Democrats, I am pleading with those of you running the party. You have to step up your game. You have to get in front of every microphone you can get in front of, every camera you can get in front of, and you have to refute on a daily basis every lie the Rethugla QAnons tell. You have to drown those bastards out. You have to show that we are strong and we are dedicated and we are serious. And even though we're a big tent party, we can come together, especially when crimes have been committed against the people of this country by our leaders, the people who should be setting an example for the rest of us, not using the power of their positions to abuse the rest of us and line their pockets. It's that simple. It really is that simple and that difficult. Before I wrap up, I want to say, I just want to say a quick word about Mort Saul, who is one of the great American comics of the 20th century. Mort Saul, along with Lenny Bruce and a few other people, changed the course of stand-up comedy in this country. Saul was brilliant, and he was a political satirist. I was brought up on Mort Saul and Professor Irwin Corey and Lenny Bruce. But Mort Saul was one of a kind. He was a legend. He died last week at the age of 94. He had a great run, but we're the lesser for his loss. So I'm really sorry he's no longer on this planet, because we really could use his voice. Anyway, on that chipper note, I'm sitting here trying to think if there's anything else I have to tell you, because this is the part where I would do what I did at the beginning of the show, where I tell you, subscribe, like, all that crap. But I've already said that. So in the meantime, what I want to say is I still have hope. I hope all the, I guess, negativity I have demonstrated today, or not negativity, but pointing out the reality of what we're living under at the moment, hasn't brought too many of you down. Because I know how I feel when I hear this on the radio or I listen, watching TV. It drives me crazy. It breaks my heart. And I hope I haven't done that to any of you. I wanted to be amusing as I did this, because God knows my background is comedy, but I'm not laughing. I'm not laughing at the moment. And part of that may be having been ill for a long time, but part of it is, come on, what? Except for doing so ironically, what's there to laugh at? Okay? So, in parting, I want to say thank you for watching and or listening to today's show. It's really good to be back. Hopefully, I will stay healthy or get healthier and be able to continue these shows for you. And in the meantime, stay safe, stay sane, take care of each other. And whatever you do, and whatever anybody does to you, don't take any shit from anyone. Have a great week. Bye-bye.